welcome to Running Village. I want to talk to you today about some of the lingo that's being thrown around on running websites and at stores and in people's head as far as this minimal movement goes. We're going to talk about minimal versus low profile versus the drop. We did a video recently called Low Down on the Drop and just kind of explained to you what the drop is and why people are talking about it. But there's some things going on in the running world that are really redesigning the way shoes are made right now and what they look like when they come to you. So let's give you the skinny on all three of them. Alright, if we talk about minimal, the true definition of minimal is going to be a shoe that has not only a low profile, meaning it sits close to the ground, but it also is going to have a small drop. This drop in the Saucony Kinvara is basically 4 millimeters. That is a differential from the heel to the toe. So if this rear end, say, is 12 millimeters high, the front end then would be 8 millimeters. And don't quote me on that. I'm not trying to give you the specs on each one of these shoes today. But not only is it then low profile with a small drop, 4 millimeters instead of 12 millimeters, it's also going to be flexible, okay, and also have a pretty wide toe box. What a true minimal shoe is supposed to do is allow you to be more of a midfoot striker, stay close to the ground, use your own body for efficiency, shock absorption, and propulsion, and allow the front end of the foot to splay out and toe off, from a nice strong platform. What we're finding is that shoe companies are starting to take some of the cues from this minimal movement and put them in shoes that aren't necessarily the definition of minimal. This would be an example. This is actually a racing flat or a lightweight trainer. This would be considered low profile because from here it sits close to the ground. However, I believe this is still a 12 millimeter drop. So the drop on this is not 4 millimeters like the shoe I just showed you. What you get here is a shoe that's not necessarily nearly as flexible as well. So this is for someone that isn't necessarily worried about that minimal movement having to be minimal, with stripping everything away, but for someone that wants to get a little closer to the ground and feel like they're in a shoe that's faster and lightweight. That would be low profile. All right, so what we're starting to find is that the drop in the definition of low profile is misleading, and you're not really getting in a shoe that has a 4 millimeter drop just because the shoe's closer to the ground. What that allows you to do is get more of a feel from the road. It lightens the shoe up itself, and if you are running faster with more of a midfoot strike, the shoe's gonna flow really good for you. Then let's talk about the drop. We did that low down on the drop, and what you're gonna see here is a shoe. This is probably 12 millimeter drop, but this is probably closer to 24, 12. The definition of the drop is really that differential from heel to toe. Now, some of the companies measure it in different ways, but understand that Saucony is a good example. Saucony has actually gone from a 12 millimeter drop, 24, 12, to 8 millimeters. So people are starting to think, well, that's minimal. The shoe might not last as long. That's not necessarily the case. What some of the companies are doing, ASICS went from 12 to 10 millimeter drops in some of their shoes. They're still high mileage shoes, but what they're doing is taking the rear end, and maybe they took from 24, they went to 22. So they took 2 millimeters off of the rear end of it. Well, if they leave the front at 12, now that's a 10 millimeter. What Saucony did was they actually might add 2 millimeters in the front, take 2 millimeters in the back, meet in the middle, so it's an 8 millimeter drop shoe, which all of a sudden now has more midfoot, and forefoot cushioning for someone that's not heel striking but midfoot striking, and they're spending more time up here. They just gave you more cushion in the front end, and they made a shoe that feels faster, it feels more responsive, but it's still high mileage with tons of cushion. That's not even mentioning to you the Hoka. When you look at Hoka's, guys, a Hoka is a 4 millimeter drop, so it's not set at 12 millimeters. It's 4 millimeter drop, but it can't necessarily be called minimal because they have about 40 millimeters of cushion on the rear end. If that's 4 millimeter drop, that means 40 to 36. That's basically, a nice easy drop where you're still using a midfoot strike, you're using lower leg and your feet to really change the efficiency of your stride and work on some of that, but you're getting maximum cushion. So understand this, guys. what we're talking about is just knowing the difference of whether or not you want to go minimal, meaning everything is stripped down. It's low profile, it's more flexible, the drop is small, but it's probably, you know, going to cause a lot of banging if you're doing 20-mile long runs in those and you're not super efficient. Or if you want to just go lower profile, where lower profile meaning closer to the ground and feeling like the shoe's a little more efficient, that might be a racing shoe. Or you want to look at the drop. And like Saucony and Asics are saying, they went to 10 or 8 millimeter drops, which they feel is an optimal place that allows you to decrease some of your heel strike, become more efficient midfoot striker, but still gives you plenty of cushion front and back to give you a high mileage shoe, a long lasting shoe that still protects you without feeling like you're in a shoe that's a 0 millimeter drop with about 2 millimeters of cushion and you're going to bang a little bit. So just know what you're getting into. If you know, what we find is that everyone has their own opinion of what movement they want to be in. We love all of them as long as you're out moving, but know, you know, just picking the right thing for you and enjoying it. That's what we're all about. Take it easy.